Good morning, everyone. If you would join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. We have some very quick housekeeping. We do this every week. And this is per the open meeting law for Broadwater County. We do follow Robert's Rules of Order. The purpose of this policy is to open Broadwater County public meetings to all county citizens. We realize we have a fiscal and fiduciary responsibility to conduct county business as efficiently as possible for all Broadwater County residents. Commission meetings are recorded and are on YouTube, so please state your name for the record prior to any public comment. Any separate conversations need to be removed from the meeting and conducted outside. Outbursts will not be tolerated. Public comment will give each citizen who wishes to speak 3 minutes to do so, and all comments should be directed to the board chair or presiding officer. So with that, it is May 12th. This is the Broadwater County Commission meeting. And is there any public comment? Bill?
Bill Kearns, I just wanted to call your attention to a couple events over the weekend. Inez Hone had her 90th birthday. She's the mother of Jim Hone, former commissioner, and Brian, who works for the county. And then Dell Bradley had a 90th birthday. So we had two 95th birthday this morning down at the commercial. Had a little cake for him. So one was 90 and one was 95. So.
Thank you, Bill. If the majority of people here want to sing happy birthday, we'll do so. All those in favor? Thanks, Bill. Joan?
Joan Hill. On the meals for the jail, was that passed?
To go ahead and contract with the state prison system, yes.
Because I just wondered how much taken out of Broadwater County to go to the state, because we're paying taxes on all of it.
Right, and that was a serious part of the discussion. There is certainly some that will be leaving, that will not go through the hospital. Nick worked with the new CFO there as well as the CEO. The problem is there was just so much that could be saved. So, any other public comment?
You might comment also that the hospital wanted this also.
Right, yeah, this was not just the detention center's decision, the hospital was in favor as well. Thanks, Elaine. Any other public comment? John?
John Wright. Laura, since you've been charged and pressed in the case DV 1429, reference to wrongful discharge, do you plan on standing down, or are you going to carry through as an officer?
I'm absolutely carrying through, thank you very much. All right, anybody else with public comment? Fred?
Yeah, can I ask, Fred Frower, can we talk about roads, or is just one road?
Sure, absolutely.
South Fork, Ray Creek, we had that winter storm, and I know lots of other people got hurt there, but we have 2 ditches about that deep on the, I guess on the west side of the road going up to the benches where we live. Franklin knows where that is. Helped me out a lot, thank you. So that's and thank you for serving, all 3 of you.
I'll mention that to Dana.
Okay, will you?
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
This is just, nothing's been done. I mean, those holes are still there. I
Nothing's
assume they
been
were there
done.
today when you come down.
Yeah, so if your tire went in there, but just turn your current right over.
And we'll have a report on the progress of that next week.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Tim?
Madam Chair, Tim Ravendall. This weekend, I guess it could be part of the Montana Minute as well, the Broadwater Fire District held their pancake breakfast, and man, them guys put on a great deal, and there was a great turnout for that. I think it was just wonderful the way the community comes together on those types of things. Another issue two, kind of related to the road program here. Our process, I understand, is moving rather slowly with the bureaucracy of the state and the Deep Creek Highway. And one of the things that I heard this weekend as well is there's some folks that live right there at the North Fork Bridge where the old bar used to be, and then across where Terry Frost used to live there in that little pocket down in the bottom there. There's some provisions where that road's going to be widened out in order to accommodate the new bridge, as well as the realignment of the highway for the bridge issue. And both of those landowners are very concerned about where that right-of-way is going to end up. One of the landowners is concerned about trees and things that are on his property now. The other landowner is concerned about wells and septic systems. And he's asked this question multiple times in the past of different parties, and I'm not saying who or where he went with their concerns, but both landowners would like to have a response or at least be in contact with somebody from either the county or the highway department so that they can get a clarification on what's going on with that realignment, so they can understand what the process is and what's going to happen with those easements and any eminent domain process that might be instituted. Because again, both landowners were indicating that they've been in the dark on what the real details of the plan is. And so I urge the commission to take a close look at that and direct whoever the authority is up to talk to them folks. Thank you.
Do you guys have any updates on that,
I don't.
Franklin?
I don't.
Okay,
I'm going to try and find out something I'm dealing with on the Toston Project South there with because I'm involved with Toston Irrigation and the landowner there. So I know there's a couple of these people that I'm working with on the highway, and I'll try to get a contact person for this project up there.
And I'd certainly be glad to continue talking to these folks. They asked me to get back to them personally, and I told them I would relay the message. So
just for the.
as the messenger, here I is.
For the commission, just an update on that particular subject that was brought to us actually months ago when we had a public meeting. We did speak to some of those issues. But Julie and Dana did have some development specifically to a well, which what brought Julie into it. She and Dana are both working on this with those landowners right now. I think at this point they probably don't have an answer. This is one of those things that's going to take some time. But we do have the county actively involved with the two landowners as we speak. And again, this started last week, so thank you for bringing it to our attention again. Rest assured we are on top of it. And we'll bring a status report as soon as we have it.
That's all they asked for. Thank you.
Any other public comment? All right. Next, we do a Montana Minute, something positive about our state or community. Franklin, you have anything to add?
No.
All right, Elaine.
I do.
I knew you would.
Hats off to all of Broadwater County. They did a fundraiser this weekend. It was donkey basketball game. And I did not get to attend, but I understand it was wonderful. And they raised $4,400 for the White family because of the health of their children.
Fantastic.
And I thought that was great.
My Montana Minute is our 4-H kids. I don't know who noticed, but they were cleaning the highway between Townsend and Helena this weekend. Well, last week actually. But for anybody who's traveled, some of your states, Mississippi was one that used to just amaze me. The garbage along the highways is deplorable. That's a problem we don't have in Montana. With all our wind, our highways are really pretty clean. So kudos to our local 4-H'ers. I think they did a phenomenal job and continue to do so. So, and one of the greatest things about travel is you realize how great we have it here.
And it's always good to come home.
Absolutely, yes. So any other Montana Minutes from the audience? Tim, I think you were first.
Mr. Kearns brought up the fact that Montana is celebrating its birthday as a state this month. And I think it's really interesting to point out that our first territorial governor, Edgerton, if I pronounce his name right, was kind of like the black sheep of the process in our development of a state. and he is solely responsible for the shape of Montana as it was carved out of the Idaho Territory. And this all took place at the time when our country was in great turmoil with President Lincoln and the Civil War, and no political programs were being played. But Mr. Edgerton was really a very instrumental player in the development of Montana as a state.
That's 150 as a territory, I believe, Bill.
Yeah.
Just one small comment, he was an abolitionist too, also.
Yes.
And his family and my family were on the trail, what do you call it, the Underground Railroad in Philadelphia. And he was a Quaker, like myself, Society of Friends, which believe in not war and not guns, etc. So I appreciate your mentioning his name as a peaceful man.
Very. There's a big story in the Independent Record on him as well, if you haven't seen that.
Yeah, I read
They
that.
did a pretty good job of reminding the folks of where, it used to be Edgerton County before it was changed to Lewis and Clark County.
But then pro-slaverists also, the people for slavery had him fired.
Yep.
So, little history. Thank you, Tim, for that.
Yeah, thank you. Interesting. All right, John, I think you had your hand up as well.
John Wright. Laura, the thing you just brought up about down in Mississippi and around the Gulf, the reason the roads are so cluttered, there's a simple good reason if you go to the source. They have hurricanes and heavy trade winds, and they're always blowing something someplace, and most of it come out of the back of trucks. That's a fact. I know that. I'm one of the contributors.
I'm sorry for them. All right, any other Montana minutes? Okay, with that, Brian Hone, solid waste update is scheduled at 10:30. He had a family emergency this weekend. His mother did celebrate her birthday, and he had a family member pass away, his uncle.
Oh, his
So,
uncle, I think I said.
yeah, so he won't be here today. We're just gonna skip this month and catch up next month, if that is okay with the board.
I'm fine with that.
All right. All right, we have minutes, May 5th, 2014. These minutes, just to let you know, are sent out to us the week before the meeting so that we have a chance to read them and peruse them and offer any corrections that may be required or suggested.
That was a little quick piece of news.
All right.
I got an email from Bobby Eklund, who's the executive secretary at Rocky Mountain Development, and they went ahead and they hired the lady from Alaska, and she'll be starting here right directly. So I think she'll be a good fit for the board and for the officers there. So we're glad to have it filled.
Is that for a therapist position or what position?
No, executive director.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I should have been more specific.
Is she a resident of the county?
She lives in Alaska. She's moving to Helena, because that's where she'll be working.
This is a state agency, not county. They just service the county.
Her name is Julie Serstad.
Thank you, Elaine. I think that's good news for Rocky.
Very good news for Rocky.
Kurt Chisholm has done a phenomenal job.
My preference would be for Kurt to stay, but he wants to retire and go golfing, so.
No, he's done great.
And on the bottom of this, it says, signed by Kurt, sent from my smartphone on the 8th tee at Bill Roberts.
And
Could you spell her last
Mhm. Serstad. She's currently working in Alaska, and she'll be down here mid-June.
we have a copy of the email for the minutes record as well. Oh, thanks. All right, anything on those minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes
I'll second.
of May 5th.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of May 5, 2014. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thanks, Ann. All right, we have some invitations. This is for Elaine and Franklin. And this is for a groundbreaking ceremony at 3 p.m. on the 21st at the hospital for the new CT scanner.
What time is that, Madam Chair?
3 p.m. on the 21st. That's at the hospital.
You know, that's somebody else that's come a long way in years, time.
Yes, yes. Right, next we have a letter from the Department of Public Service Regulation, the Public Service Commission. And this is for the Sober Chauffeur LLC and Blake R. Beecher, DBA Cinderella's Chauffeur. And this is not for here in Broadwater County, but if you know somebody in the area, you can certainly let them know. And it's for the Transportation Division for both those businesses.
Cinderella Chauffeur sounds to me like it might be a limo, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Next, we have a quarterly report on the revolving loan fund from Montana Business Assistance Connection. This is an update with the various businesses that they have assisted. Number just came to us last week that the amount that the revolving loan fund has provided for Broadwater County businesses is about $3.5 million. We have that coming in writing here shortly. And that was started, the revolving loans fund was started by Broadwater Printing years ago, Del Schubring. The money that is loaned to various businesses is paid back to the revolving loan fund to loan out to other starting businesses in Broadwater County or established businesses that need a loan for equipment or what have you. The interest also goes back into the revolving loan fund, so.
He has been a big help to a lot of different people.
Mm-hmm. Next, we have the Mako Workman's Comp Trust. Our mod factor increased this year. It's based on a 5-year average. We're at 1.05. If we get below 1, we can actually save some money. So our insurance rates, we need to work on that. Safety committee should help with that. We kind of knew it would probably be going up this year. Safety committee met this week, and there will be some trainings coming in for employees. Brian and Mike will be working on that. But we've got some homework to do there.
How come they have nursing home patient care here?
Well, that's actually not for us. It's statewide, so some counties
Oh,
do
all
have
right.
nursing homes, we don't, but they still have it on the list. The only thing they change is that part in yellow that says Broadwater County.
Okay. That makes sense. I just saw that, I thought, no.
Yeah. And that was shared with the safety committee.
What is the average statewide?
That I don't know. Okay, next we have a letter from FEMA. This is regarding the floodplain management. We do have our floodplain ordinance currently with the planning board, and Sean would like us to bring that forward as soon as possible. So I will follow up with the planning board. If we don't adopt this, then our citizens are not eligible for flood insurance. So it's an important thing that we adopt for our citizens.
I'll make a motion that we adopt this.
We actually need to get it from the planning board first. It's more just a reminder letter at this
Oh, all
point.
right.
Yeah.
So it's going to go through the planning board first, yeah.
Mhm.
Next, we have a letter from the Department of Public Health and Human Services, the Environmental Laboratory, and Clean Bill of Health for the Wells Epicycles KOA.
You're done with this deck.
Yeah.
Thank you. If these got a little bit messed up, I'll help you with those, Ann. I have 2 letters to read into the record, and just making sure. We have one more piece of mail here. This is from the USDA, Department of Agriculture, and this is in partnership with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and they are soon to complete the Ray Creek land acquisition. They will have a celebration when this happens, officially when it's closed. This is something they've been working on for a couple of years now. They have sought to acquire and conserve the historic Neild Ranch, and have been working in conjunction, partnership with the Four Sisters and the Neild Family Partnership. And this is just a description of the land. There was an article on this in the IR not too long ago, and the process and the status.
You're not giving the rates or anything on this flood insurance, you just,
That's not the insurance, Franklin. That's the ordinance that we need to adopt. And the reason that that needs to be done is so our citizens are eligible for flood insurance. If we don't adopt the ordinance, they can't purchase flood
Right, but I
insurance.
see they don't have any other information.
No, FEMA wouldn't provide independent insurance companies rates. That's up to the businesses.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
may I get a copy of the land acquisition?
Mhm. All right, I'm gonna start with the positive letter. This was emailed to us regarding the Spring Weed Times. The Weed Times is a magazine that's put out, and it's by weed coordinators, by and large. And our weed coordinator, Scott Dunning, wrote an article in the magazine. And this is from Charlene Singh, who's the research entomologist on the classical biological control of weeds with the USDA Forest Service and the Rocky Mountain Research Station. And what she writes, I'd like to, if it's okay with the board, submit this to Scott's file. I'm emailing you today, dear Broadwater County Commissioners. I'm emailing you today because I was so impressed with the article your county weed coordinator, Scott Dunning, recently submitted to the Montana Weed Control Association's newsletter, Weed Times. Scott wrote an excellent article about hybrid toadflax and provided great details on how to distinguish hybrid from Dalmatian and yellow toadflax. Dr. Sarah Ward is the Colorado State University plant geneticist who performed the molecular diagnosis, confirming for the first time that hybridization was occurring between Dalmatian and yellow toadflax at field sites in North America. One in Broadwater County, one in Jefferson County, by the way. You can see Sarah's response to Scott's article directly below this message. She thought his article provided the best possible method for identifying this new and worrisome weed management target. You should know that Scott wrote this article on his own initiative and without any so-called expert advice or input. So I just wanted to share that. And a copy of his article is here as well. If anybody would like, you can certainly get copies.
Whoops.
Thank you. Okay, the next letter is from Roger Halver, and it reads, Broadwater County Commissioners, I would ask that this letter be read aloud at the May 12, 2014 Broadwater County Commission meeting and be officially entered into the county records. I withdraw my name from any consideration now or in the future for the employment position of Chief Administrative Officer for Broadwater County. In seeking this position, I analyzed where I might best serve the employees and citizens of Broadwater County. I would not have pursued this position had I not known I had the skills and experience to perform this job well. This process could have been handled better, but I deny any unethical or illegal actions in my pursuit of the position of Chief Administrative Officer for Broadwater County. I thank both Commissioners Obert and Gravely for their consideration and time spent in this matter. I know I would have been an effective advocate for citizens and all the conscientious and hardworking employees of Broadwater County. I also know that I could have been effective in protecting the citizens and employees of Broadwater County from the questionable and possibly corrupt actions of Commissioner Solifka. Concerning Commissioner Solifka, never in all my years as a public employee and lobbyist have I seen an elected official treat public employees in such a degrading manner that has been done by this commissioner. Just one example of this was the disgraceful treatment of Brian Hone, head of the Solid Waste Department, at the April 8, 2014 County Commissioners meeting. A true man of integrity would apologize to Brian or resign. I'm sure Commissioner Solifka will do neither. And there is a copy here, also an email that I will send out.
Laura, is he still running for commissioner?
As far as I know, I don't recall hearing anything in the letter that said otherwise.
Once the filing date closes to file for office, they can no longer withdraw. And that's state law. I don't know today.
There is, I think this one belongs with that batch, so I'll read it next. Yeah, there's a lot, so it's kind of good we have some time. Okay, the next piece of mail is regarding the Michael Wright parcel, and this will be one that we'll want to meet with Doug on. But basically, Department of Revenue is acknowledging, just as a refresher,
Here's just a straight copy.
if the second one is an email, and I think we need to keep those additional paragraphs, Franklin, so we can make you a copy, but you can't take that copy.
Yeah, make me a copy.
The top one would be the best one because it's signed. The others aren't signed.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Thank you. So the last piece is of non-signature mail, is regarding the tax assignment that we heard from Doug on, Michael Wright. This was at one of our working meetings. And his, I'm just gonna read the email he sent to Department of Revenue, and this will refresh your memory. I've been working on a tax assignment for parcel 7C0432, belonging to Michael Wright. The property has been foreclosed on by Everhome Mortgage Company and was purchased from them, by Mr. Wright. When the Department of Revenue entered the information for Mr. Wright's property, it was entered in Evergreen Mortgage Company instead of Michael Wright. If Mr. Wright called in to inquire about his tax bill, he could not find it on our system because of this error. Because of this, Michael Wright never received a tax bill for his property or tax assignment, and tax assignment was taken on his property. Mr. Wright redeemed his property and in the process asked if there was any kind of restitution he could receive for the penalty and interest he had to pay, which amounted to $689. I feel any reimbursement should come from the Department of Revenue, since it was their error that caused this series of events. Please let me know what your response is. Department of Revenue sent a response, and I won't read the whole thing. They do acknowledge that it was their error, and they will not pay. The department received a trustee's deed conveying the real property to the mortgage company and a grant deed to the Federal National Mortgage Association. We also received a special warranty deed transferring ownership from Fannie Mae to Mr. Wright. The department then transferred ownership to Mr. Wright in September of 2010. The department mailed an assessment notice to Mr. Wright in 2010. He did pay his tax that year. Thereafter, inadvertently, ownership was reverted back to Everhome Mortgage Company, and as a result, Everhome Mortgage Company received the assessment notices and tax bills for tax years 11, 12, and 13. So they do acknowledge it was their error. They then cite section 15-8-201 MCA, states that an assessment is not invalidated because of a mistake in the name of the owner or supposed owner of the real property. Mr. Wright was well aware that taxes are assessed on his property. He did receive a bill, although only in 2010. So therefore, they are refusing to do anything for the situation or for Mr. Wright other than to correct the error and put it back in his name. So that the companies that buy property bought his, he now has to pay them plus 10% and has late fees for the county due to the Department of Revenue error. So I wanted to bring that to your attention, and we can maybe work on with Doug on what we should do, unless you guys have any other ideas.
I find it interesting that they admit it's their mistake, but the problem is yours.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we'll do anything about it. Their mistake, we won't do anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, they admit right there that they made a mistake, but it's also sorry.
Exactly, yeah. Franklin, you didn't bring a copy. Did you want to see the copy of the letter
Which is that?
that I just read?
Oh, I got that.
Okay, all right. I saw that you were reading along, Elaine.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's nothing more on that, do you guys want to just work with Doug?
Yeah,
Or- Okay, all right.
I feel bad for the landowner.
I know it. Yeah, that's a big mistake.
You know, and granted, we all have to pay taxes and it's our responsibility to know that, but nevertheless.
Right, yeah. Especially new homeowners don't always know the details involved.
Mhm.
It's nice to be able to help them out as far as that understanding.
Well, if you get more property, you know, you might get many tax bills. I get probably 10 or so, you know, you don't realize which is going to pay it. I guess you
Don't
should-
even question it, do you?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
I think that's what we all do, put it in a stack and just
Mm-hmm.
write the check.
Okay, next we have claims in the amount of, these are the approved claims from last week, $24,673.31.
I make a motion to approve claims in the amount of $24,673.31.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to pay the approved claims in the amount of $24,673.31. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. I think we have time for one more piece of mail. This is from the Department of Health and Human Services for the county funds transfer of Medicaid match agreement with your county. Enclosed, please find an invoice for fiscal year 2014 payment. Please note that per the agreement, the payment is due in our office by June 1. The check should be made out to state of Montana. Thank you for your attention to this, and it's on the back. It's for $5,612. This is sent to the state. A group of commissioners met with the governor's office at the last midwinter and then again at the last conference. And what happens is we all send our money in, and then that money is matched by the feds, and then it's matched by the state, or vice versa. But anyway, our $5,600 is increased by working with the other counties in the state on this. And that was headed by Carl Seelstad. Yeah, of the board, what was the board you were on?
I'm on the health one.
Health and Human Services. Yes, Chair of the Health and Human Services Board. So do you want me to go ahead and put this on the next agenda and just bring
I
it
think
back?
so.
Okay. Should we do one more real quick piece here?
Mhm.
This is, this one will be quick. This is a letter from the Toston Irrigation District. They're seeking a support letter for a grant that they are pursuing. Grant funds to assist in lining another portion of the main canal to prevent major loss of available water due to seepage. Many of the lateral canals have been replaced with a gravity pipeline, which the district was able to pay for out of reserve funds. They would like a support letter by this Wednesday, May 14. We just need the support letter, some of the language is included here, put on letterhead. So if you wanted to just do that this afternoon for our afternoon appointment, Franklin, we can go ahead and vote to approve that today without any delay.
Okay.
Can you add anything to that? Aren't you on that board?
Yeah, well, we got one grant, but with that highway relocation this year, we're not gonna use it, but Sean got us an extension till 15. And if we get this other, then we can incorporate it all in together. Basically, is what it amounts to.
Do you want to see this, or you have already seen it?
Ooh, yeah.
All right, it is time for, it's 10:45. The public hearing, we're gonna close this general meeting and open a public hearing for a resolution to declare 2014 the year of the Buffalo Robe. There's a resolution here, and per Elaine, I will read it out loud. Whereas the Broadwater, just because you suggested it before, a couple of times. A resolution to establish 2014 as the year of the Buffalo Robe for Broadwater County. Whereas the Broadwater County Commission wishes to establish 2014 as the year of the Buffalo Robe in Broadwater County, Montana. And whereas a painted buffalo robe can be compared to war medals a modern soldier might wear, and whereas the Broadwater County Buffalo Robe is one of only a few existing that show a certain decoration on the bridle of a horse. And whereas archaeologist Janice Boma dated the Buffalo Robe between 1850 and 1890 and believes it originated with the Blackfeet Nation. And whereas Boma said, "I think it's pretty great that we have something right in the local museum that you would otherwise have to travel to the Smithsonian to see. But it's actually in Townsend. And if not for the local volunteer who recognized the fact that it was indeed a bison robe that had some sort of paintings on it, it would not be here today." And whereas today's Broadwater County was recognized as Blackfeet country in the Broadwater bygones, and whereas many artifacts have been recovered in Broadwater County connected to the Blackfeet, including campsites, TB rings, kill sites, vision quest sites, pictographs, rock shelters, and quarries, also sourced with Broadwater bygones, now therefore be it resolved. 2014 will be known as the Year of the Buffalo Robe in honor of the Native Americans that first called Broadwater County, Montana their home. So before we take public comment on this, is there any history to the Buffalo Robe that any of our historians would like to add? And I don't by any means want to put anyone on the spot. All right, I'll share just a little bit. I was given a 3-page essay pretty much on the history of the Buffalo Robe. And one of the things that's very interesting about it is somebody was throwing it away. And a volunteer with the museum, Kay Ingalls, happened to see it in the garbage pile and thought it looked like it could be something. So she picked it up, she took it to the museum to have it looked at, and discovered that it's completely unique in how old it is, in how good a shape it's in. It is one of the few that shows the bridle on a horse, which helps to date it and also helps to define which nation it came from. It is true what this archaeologist says is There's very few of these in Montana, very few. I think it's the only one, am I not mistaken?
I don't know about that, Laura, but there are, they say that between Canada and the United States, there are maybe 12.
That's incredible, and one's in Townsend. So I salute the museum and the curator and the board for bringing this forward and for the celebration they're putting together this Sunday, the 18th, at what time?
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock at the museum. So that's the history. Is there any public comment for or against making 2014 the year of the Buffalo Road?
A question.
Yes.
Linda, will this be on display at the museum then?
I would add that the original Buffalo robe has been on display since Kay found it, and that was in the 1980s. We are very concerned about the shape of the old Buffalo robe. It is deteriorating, fading, and we don't have the proper ways to preserve it. So we had it replicated, and we have a new painted buffalo robe. For this season, we are going to display the old buffalo robe and the new buffalo robe. And during this season, we are going to pursue avenues of what should we do with the old buffalo robe. And hopefully, we'll find a home for it that can take care of it like it should be taken care of. We don't have the money to do it.
So will you send it to the Smithsonian then perhaps?
We don't know yet, Elaine. We're working with Rocky in Bozeman and the Historical Society in Helena, and then we're going to spend the season seeing if we can find other sources that could give us a place to put it. But the big thing is that bridle thing on that horse.
Is there any chance we could keep it in Broward County? I mean, if we had bought a, what do you call it, special chest or something.
It should be hermetically sealed and have the proper lighting and have the proper glass over it.
Maybe
Bill,
temperature.
and temperature, yes, and we just don't think there's that kind of money to, and we could pursue that, we haven't ruled that out.
Thank you.
One more question.
Yes.
Where was it found?
In a yard sale, and there was a pile to go to the dump, and that was in the pile, and Kay found it and brought it back to the museum, and I don't know if Troy Helmick happened to be in there, but he's always been very active with the museum. And she said, do you think this is anything we'd be interested in? And Troy said, yeah.
Thank goodness for Kay.
There was some damage to it, and they sent it to Denver, and someplace in Denver, and they repaired it as best they could without sewing it and ruining it. And they cleaned it, and then several years later, we did purchase a nice case for it. It's a beautiful case, but it's not, you know, it won't save it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, John?
Laura, how much money has been actually spent on this original road and the improved or copy? Is there a figure on how much has been spent on it?
I don't have any idea. Do you have that off the top
Well, I
of your
can
head?
give you an idea. Nothing was spent on the original robe to get it, and then I'm sure they paid Denver to clean it up and fix it up, and actually I don't have that figure. The new robe, the man who killed the buffalo and tanned the hide, gave it to us for approximately half of what he would have charged someone other than a nonprofit. And the man who painted it charged us nothing. He wanted to pay it forward, and that's what he's done. I think it would have cost around $1,500 to have him paint it for us. So there hasn't been a lot of money spent on
That's interesting. That's very cool.
it. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I have one more question.
okay.
Has there been any absolute identification of who this belonged to or who did it in the beginning?
Yes, it's in the resolution. Janice Boma is an archaeologist, and she, let's see, here's her credentials. She did date it between 1850 and 1890, and believes it originated with the Blackfeet Nation. And she is a archaeologist. Oh, I just read it, I just don't see it. She's got her doctorate, and she actually wrote her thesis on this particular Buffalo Road. That part's not in the resolution. But she is credentialed, she does have the knowledge base.
There's also another archaeologist, Dr. Jim Kaiser, who worked with it substantially when it first came to live at the museum. And he will be speaking on it, about it on Sunday.
Is this the whole hide, Linda, or is it just part of a hide, or?
It's the whole hide.
It is, huh?
Except the tail. The new one has the tail.
Any other questions or comments regarding the Year of the Buffalo Road? Anything more from the board? All right. I did put it on the agenda for right after lunch. I didn't know if there would be, opposition or not. So we have just 5 minutes before our next public hearing. So how about we close this public hearing, do one more quick piece of mail, and then open for our next one. Is that agreeable?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, all right. Last chance? All right, close this public hearing, and we will address a piece of mail before our next public hearing. Would you sign this one? And this one, we'll put them in the stack.
I'm having trouble figuring that out.
Do you have a calendar now?
I think when they painted,
Oh, okay.
Thank you. All right, PPL has purchased a bunch of the dams in Montana, or is in the process of purchasing the dams in Montana. Broadwater County with the Towson Dam is on the list. So what this is a consent to assignment, and it is just to update the MOU. The assignment of the MOU is not intended to modify in any manner the terms and conditions of the MOU, other than to identify the parties involved in the closing, and I twisted that. PPL did own these particular dams, not the Towson Dam though. Northwestern Energy is in the process of purchasing them, not PPL, so sorry about that. But
they
this,
really from Boston Dam.
yes, yeah. So this is just to update the MOU, but again with no changes. And there is a place on the back for signatures. And I will pass this over for you guys to look at.
Towson Dam State is owned by the state DNRC, actually.
Yes.
Currently, yes. And I'm not sure if that has gone through, if it's going to go through, but we are on the list. They would like our signatures probably in case it goes through. But the negotiations are between Northwestern Energy, in our case, DNRC, and the Public Safety, or the Public Service Commission, PSC.
Well, I think we should have some more review because the water users on that dam, I mean, they're gonna have a big say in that. If you're talking about the Tossin Dam.
I don't see where it says anything about the Tostin Dam.
No, just the fact that Broadwater County's on the list.
Oh, all right.
And regardless of the Tostin Dam, we are affected by anything that happens with Hebken, with Canyon Ferry, with any of the other dams, just because we are on the route.
Right, because like I said, the Broadwater, Missouri water users and Tossin irrigation, all that,
This wouldn't necessarily change, like I said, it does keep the MOU as is. It does state we do not want to change the MOU. We can, it's on page 2. We can certainly ask somebody from Northwestern Energy to come in and talk to us, but just the sale of the dam will not affect the water users as long as the same MOU is in place. That keeps the practice the same. If this stated they wanted to change the MOU, then that would be a different story. An MOU is memorandum of understanding.
on page, I still don't see it on Tossin here. What's that one we're looking at?
It's the third paragraph, Franklin, on the second page.
Laura, can there be any comment?
Not yet, John.
Yeah, but, I don't see Tossin or Canyon Ferry. I don't see any dams mentioned.
Well, that's in the first paragraph on page 2, and Franklin, it's not going to mention the dams per se. This is the MOU with the counties that are affected by the dams. What this is a request for the counties to sign this agreement, which would keep the MOU in place so that there's no disruption for the water users.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So do you guys want to table this, or what would you like to do?
Well, that's what I say, because I think we should hear from the water users and the DNRC probably.
Would you like to go ahead and request that they come to a meeting next week and get that set up? And Northwestern Energy should be here
Well,
as
at least
well.
send us some information. Well, I don't care if they come either way. But I
Okay, we'll
think
go ahead and
still should
table
know
this.
something
next
about
week.
that. I mean, it's,
Well, there's 2 pages here, Franklin. If you want to, we'll get you a copy of this. What it is, and I can read it again. You know, I've read it twice now. It's effective upon closing, PPL Montana will assign to Northwestern, and Northwestern will assume all of PPL Montana's rights and obligations under the MOU arising from and after the closing. PPL Montana will continue to be responsible for its performance of the MOU until the closing, and Northwestern will be responsible for its performance of the MOU form after its closing. The assignment of the MOU is not intended to modify in any manner the terms and conditions of the MOU, other than to identify of the parties thereto following the closing.
well, I don't.
The same PPL Montana employees you've been working with under the MOU are scheduled to become Northwestern employees under the closing. And we look forward to a positive relationship continuing in the future, yada, yada, yada. So this is to inform us and also to let us know that there are no changes are no intended changes in the MOU. This is the protection for our citizens and water users. But I will table it for next week, and whatever you'd like to do on that, as far as who you'd like to come and speak to us. But if you do have somebody come, I think we need to for sure include Northwestern Energy, because they'll be the ones best able to answer any questions.
Right, but I could say, I guess all we gotta find is, PPL never owned the Toss Dams. I don't think Toss Dams is in this at all.
It may not be, Franklin, we talked about that, it may not be, but Broadwater County, because
Oh, I
we're
know.
on the waterway, are also affected by Hebgen Lake, Canyon Ferry, and all the others. We're all joined together because of the waterway, and that's why they're looking for our signatures on this. We're part of that line that's follows the river. Does that make sense?
Well, I understand all that, but like I
Okay.
say, I don't think the Toss Dam is involved at all because of the state ownership and all that.
Right, but that doesn't matter. This is an MOU for the use of the water affected by other dams other than Toston.
Okay, that way, I believe it, but you said the Toss Dam, you kept saying that, so anyway, never mind.
Right, the Toston Dam's in Broadwater County. Okay, we'll just table this till next week, okay? And if you do want to bring in Northwestern Energy, I'll leave that in your court. Okay. 11:05, we will open the public hearing resolution to create a county investment board consisting of county, city, and Townsend Three Forks school representatives. This was brought to us by Doug, thank you very much, as he is responsible for about 11 million in investments and would like the input of more people. This is done by other counties, and so we are following that model, and it's a protection for Doug, protection for the county, and also a best practice to get more people involved with this practice. Broadwater County Board of County Commissioners resolution to establish an advisory board for a countywide investment board. Whereas the Broadwater County Clerk and Recorder, Treasurer, Superintendent of Schools, Election Officer, known here as Treasurer, is responsible for countywide investments, and whereas the investments are public funds, and whereas an investment board would be an advisory board to the Treasurer to assist with making the wisest investments, and whereas the investment board would consist of the county treasurer, county board manager, county budget manager, school superintendent, city council member, county commission, and county commissioner, and 2 members of the public at large. Now therefore be it resolved, an investment board shall be established to assist the treasurer to determine the wisest investments for public funds. And Doug, if I, or board, if I got the wrong or missed somebody for inclusion on the investment board, we could certainly add that at this time. First of all, from you 3, and did I miss anything? Is there anything more you guys want to add to the resolution? Okay.
I see that.
I don't believe there's anything else. I think it's,
Pretty straightforward.
yeah, pretty much what we talked about before.
Okay, any comments from the public? Any questions from the public? Tim?
Madam Chair, Tim Ravendall. You're going to have 2 members at large from the public that will serve on this. At what point is that process going to move forward, and what process is going to be used to choose who serves on that board? Do you have that already established, or is it moving forward from the adoption of the official move today?
As soon as we adopt the resolution, we can move forward. We have an employee who manages our boards. This is an advisory board, so it would follow the same process as the rest of our advisory boards.
Yes,
We
please.
advertise in the paper, we take all the people who are interested, and then we select who is the most qualified, and then they would serve 1-year terms to start, and from there go on to 3-year terms.
I understand the process. I was just wondering if you have a time frame of when is this going to start, like now in the next couple of weeks of picking or putting this advertisement out?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Linda, did you have a question?
Linda Huth. The agenda talks about a member of the Three Forks School. Was that mentioned as a member?
No, thank you. Thank you. I think maybe instead of school superintendent, maybe that should be changed to representative from Townsend and Three Forks schools. Would that be okay
Yeah,
with you
I
guys?
thought that's what I heard you say, but we had Townsend School, Three Forks School, city official, county commissioner, treasurer, deputy treasurer, two at large, and our finance officer. I know we had,
All right. Hey Doug, I think you might,
That would be
I
nine.
read the one that wasn't updated.
Okay.
And that was from you two in your updates already, so I'm sorry about that. The fourth whereas should read county treasurer, county deputy treasurer, county accounting manager, a representative from Three Forks and Townsend schools, city council member, county commissioner, and 2 members of the public at large. Is that better? And then we have the Three Forks.
yeah,
Is
that would be nine people.
okay? All right, sorry about that. Everything else is the same.
Should have representatives.
Okay.
Otherwise, there's just one from the two.
Okay, any other comments or questions or things that I missed? Any other comments? Okay, any other comments from Doug or the board? All right, so Doug, how about I make those changes and then we'll bring it up for an official vote next week? And then if any more comments from the public come in, it's still not too late, you have until next week. And hopefully we'll adopt it at that time. All right. Thanks, Ann. Thanks, Doug. Okay, last chance for comments. All right, we'll close this public hearing, and we are back at our regularly scheduled program. Do one more piece of quick mail before our call with Michelle. I think DIS will take more than 3 minutes. Oh, I just want to vote on this for Debbie Kelly, who was voted on last week to become our new accounting manager. This is her new hire letter. Permanent employment, full-time at 40 hours a week, rate of pay at $20 an hour, 6 months probationary period. This is the standard letter. So I just wanted to vote for the public record before signing it. We had a vote last week. This has all been discussed before.
Make a motion to sign the letter of hire for the town manager.
And second, it's been moved and seconded to sign the new hire letter and particulars for Debbie Kelly as the new accounting manager for Broadwater County as a permanent full-time employee to start at $20 an hour. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just a real quick question. Does this accounting manager position, does that alleviate the need to replace a finance officer that we previously had in accounting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And I'll speak to that more in just a second. I would like to ask for a friendly amendment to the motion that we backdate this till next, for last week, just because of wanting the vote with everything. All right.
Okay.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to accept the friendly amendment to post date to May 5, 2014. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. All right, to answer your question, Tim, what we did through the business office restructuring that we've been doing now for months now, since early February, is we've been reevaluating offices and job descriptions. One office that had grown by 3 times was the finance office over the last 10 years. No other department had grown by that much. So what we did is we looked at the jobs that were at one time handled by the finance officer and asked other employees, could you take pieces of this job? The commission took some, employees took some, and then we evaluated what exactly it is that we needed. And we need a budget manager. So instead of creating just the same position we had before, we evaluated what the actual needs are, created this position, offered it in-house. We've actually cut 1 FTE and have replaced all those jobs with people already on payroll. The initial savings just from the cut FTE is about $70,000 a year. We did offer a little bit more for the employee to take on the budgeting job, and we added some hours to part-time employees. And so that, knocks that savings down a little bit, but we're still looking at a substantial savings. So that's to answer your question, and thank you for asking. Yes, this does replace the finance officer position. So it's 11:15, and I brought the phone out. Next item on the agenda is Michelle Piggery, Contract HR Professional Conference Call. This is also part of those meetings that we've been having, the county restructuring. We are considering contracting HR services because it is the least expensive way to go. It does put more responsibility on elected officials and specifically commissioners to attend more trainings and to know what we're doing regarding personnel, but it is the least expensive for the citizens. So it is one of those things that we're looking at and have been for quite some time. Too soon. Hello, this is Laura Obert from Broadwater County. Good, thanks. How are you doing, Michelle? Good. Hey, do you mind if I put you on speakerphone? All right, thank you very much. Michelle, are you still on?
Yes, I am.
Oh, good. We have the full commission here, Franklin Salifka, whom you met at the Butte training, and Elaine Gravely, and myself and Ann Browser, who's taking the minutes for us, and then we also have members of the public here. And just wanted to talk to you about the possibility of contracting your services for Broadwater County.
Okay.
So I guess...
Laura, can you do me a favor and you cut out a little bit and read and go through who's here again?
You bet. We have 7 members of the public, and we have Ann Rouser with the Clerk and Recorder's Office. She takes our minutes. And then we have the full commission, and that would be Franklin Salifka and Elaine Gravely and myself.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
You bet. So basically, we're just trying to figure out the best course for us to offer HR services to our employees. Currently, we do not have any HR to offer them. From your trainings that you've had, that looks like a possible option for us. I know you contract with other counties as well. Can you share with us how that works and what you would provide for Broadwater County?
Sure. At the present time, the tasks that I contract with counties for tend to be discrete HR tasks, not maybe specific overall HR work. So if somebody has an issue with a grievance, they can call me up if they want to revise policies. So that is what I've been doing for the last, 7 years, right? And also investigation work when that's necessary. However, the way this would look, or what I understand you guys need, is you need more HR support. And you're thinking about contracting out that support instead of hiring an HR person. So the way I envision that from my perspective, there are services out there, as I explained to you before, where you can contract a whole HR function from them. The issue with those services tends to be, though, that they want you to do everything with them. So not just your HR work, but your payroll work. And you have a payroll person who's good, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So, and this person also already handled some HR functions in the past, if I understand that.
Correct.
So the way I would propose to do this is that we would go through, well, let me back up a little bit to kind of give an education to the members of the public that are there. There's two basic, broad kind of ways to look at HR. One is the administrative portion of HR, filling out the paperwork, making sure when a new hire comes in that all of the documents are filled out, the things that most people are familiar with. Your W-2, your I-9, what benefits you want, when you can get benefits, doing a new hire orientation, making sure that people understand the policies and procedures. Okay. The other part of HR is the one that's more legally oriented, which is when there's a grievance, how is the grievance handled? If somebody needs to be disciplined, how is the discipline overseen? If somebody is going to be terminated, how do you oversee the termination and make sure that the termination is done effectively and legally, just like a discipline? And so what my proposal would be is that I would, with the county, sit down and divide up what services can be done by the person who's your payroll clerk, and those would be more the administrative tasks, and the things that I would be in charge of would be more of the legal nature of HR. So overseeing workers' comp cases. And when I say overseeing them, it's not being your workers' comp. You've got a workers' comp carrier that actually does the workers' comp cases, but managing those, making sure they don't fall through the cracks. After somebody's been on workers' comp for a certain amount of time, managing that with the carrier and saying, what do we do now, so that we can keep the mod rates down. I would also want to be in charge of overseeing disciplines and terminations, not benefits or compensation, because most of the time benefits and compensation are more administrative tasks. But I'd also want to provide services related to training. So new hire orientation, making sure that the policies are gone through with employees, provide training to managers and supervisors on general HR issues, such as interviewing and putting together a process for interviewing if necessary, and revising that as needed. Also helping with training employees and managers on discrimination, training managers on communication issues, medical issues, to make sure that if a medical issue pops up that the employee's rights are honored and supervisors actually understand what those rights are, so that something isn't said or done inadvertently that might violate the law. And let's see. I'd also want to go through, and with the county, there's a law called the Government Fair Practices Act. And the Government Fair Practices Act has a number of requirements. Some relate to employees, some relate to how services are provided to the public in a non-discriminatory way. it requires that all contracts that the county enters into has non-discrimination provisions. So that's, I want to make sure that we're abiding by that. You know, that would be a good goal, that there's good job descriptions, and that the templates that Mako provided last year are actually in use. Let's see, and there's always other things that pop up, like sometimes grants. Sometimes the county gets grants from the federal government, and those grants would put some restrictions in place related to non-discrimination provisions for contractors, for example, or reporting on how the county hires people. So that would be the kind of service that I would offer. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Do you guys have any questions?
I don't right now.
No, that sounds pretty good, and we talked about this before, Michelle. Debbie has been doing the administrative already and is happy to continue that. So I think that would be actually, what we would need is exactly what you were just describing, more of the legal aspects and the training. I think we have a dire need for the training.
Okay. Well, and the way I envision this is because it'd be a new relationship, nothing is ever, you can't ever set something in stone right at the beginning. You know, this would be an evolving process that when issues popped up, Debbie and I and the commissioners or whoever you guys feel is necessary can talk about it and say, okay, who's in charge of this function? Or who wants to take the lead on this role? And that is going to have to be fairly flexible in the beginning until we get comfortable with each other and how things are going to work. And so the way I envision it is everything's just very, that there would be a lot of communication about this is what is going on, now how do we handle it? Who takes charge of this, right? And especially with the elected officials. I mean, with the county government, as you know, elected officials, there's very interesting roles related to elected officials and who actually is the manager of the employees, right? Mm-hmm. And so everybody has to work together and be very open in their communication on how we're going to handle those roles also, right? Because the county is the one, if something happens, that gets sued. So what I'd like to do is really develop a good relationship with the elected officials and provide them as much training as possible too, so that everybody is on the same page when it comes to what employee rights are.
That sounds good.
Michelle, this is Elaine. You are already doing this for some counties, is that correct?
Well, I don't do the whole task for any one county, but I do this in separate forms for different counties.
Okay.
So, for instance, on the training part of it, for Mako, I run around and train everybody. And I've been hired by different counties to come in and give different trainings specifically for them. Okay? I have never, for a county, specifically managed their work comp issues, because normally they either have a HR person that's doing that or they just rely on their carrier. So I haven't done that, but I think that that's something that's important because whenever I'm talking to counties, there's always, you know, somebody says, well, we've had this person on the payroll for 3 years and it's still a work comp case. You know, things like that. So I've done discrete tasks for counties, but I haven't done all of this for one county. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Michelle, with this potential relationship, the employee who has an issue with their supervisor, with a contract that we would potentially have with you, would that be a matter to be addressed with this open communication and flexibility? Or would that potentially be something that should be handled like with the county attorney's office or a specific office until somebody's able to talk to you? Or how does that work?
Well, I think that, I mean, considering the fact that there is a distance, right, a travel distance, my thought would be that I would be available there, a minimum of 2 days a month. But we could figure it out, that I always come up the, second Thursday or whatever it is that seems to make the most sense. Because I think that having a physical presence is important so that somebody can put if when they want to, can look at somebody and come talk to them in person. But I also believe that there's no reason why for something like this. So an employee has an issue with a supervisor, the policy is going to be that I'm the HR contact, right? So they ought to be able to contact me and call me at any time, and I can talk them through how to handle that. So it may be that the issue with the supervisor is significant enough that I need to make a special trip up, or the issue can wait until I get there, or it is that the right first step would be to talk to the supervisor. But I would see myself as in the role of the person being able to walk in, call me up or walk in if I'm there and say, this is what's going on, what do you think, can you help me? And then providing advice on that.
Okay, thank you.
How long have you been doing HR work?
Oh, boy. I'm a licensed attorney in New Mexico, and I graduated from law school in, I don't want to date myself here, but here you go. For 1988, I spent 5 years in D.C. doing government contracts work, so working more with contracts and purchasing. And then I went to New Mexico, and so that would be kind of the mid-90s, and I started doing employment law. So I worked in that field specifically doing employment law and a lot of training and investigations until I moved to Montana 7 years ago. And when I moved to Montana, I created this business doing HR support work. So I've had that business the entire time. For 1 year of the time, probably 5 years ago now, I was the HR manager for ELM, which is a location service. So before you dig, you have to call this number and somebody comes out and marks where the lines are. That company had 1,200 employees in 16 different states. And the reason that job ended is because they decided to consolidate and move their HR function to Peoria, Illinois. They used to have headquarters here. And when they headquartered here in Missoula, that's when they had HR here. But when they decided after I'd been there for a year to consolidate and make the headquarters in Peoria, Illinois, they moved the finance function first and then the HR function there. And at that point, I decided that I didn't actually search for an HR manager's job again. I am happy doing what I do right now. So that's a long-winded way to say I've been doing HR work for a very long time.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, I do want to be clear, though. I am not an expert in benefits or compensation issues. I mean, if there has to be some kind of a compensation or salary analysis, I can do that, obviously. But benefits and compensation are things that I've always relied on either staff or another person to do. So.
Okay, and that's something we've actually been involved with for the last couple of months, and I think doing a pretty thorough job, again, with Debbie. So I don't think that would be, I think that would be absolutely fine. And Mako, of course, has been helping us through that. Any further?
Yes. And of course I would deal closely with Mako for anything because, you guys are members of Mako. Mako is the carrier, so we want to make sure that we're abiding by everything that Mako wants us to do also.
That makes sense. Any other questions from the board?
Do you have something?
No, I think I heard you say you probably come here like twice a month, is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, is that I drive up, in an afternoon, spend the night, or, maybe I drive up in the morning, spend a day, spend most of the next day, and then drive back. I think 4 hours between here and Missoula? Something like that?
3.5.
Anybody? 3.5, okay.
My husband does it in a little over 3.
Okay. So that would be my thought initially, because, you know, traveling is, well, yes. I mean, I think it's important to have a physical presence, and at least, you know, at least so that people know that I'm going to be there a couple of times a month. I don't know, maybe that's something after a couple, you know, 3 or 4 months we talk about, and we see where things fall. Either you think you need more, or you think you need less. You know, that'll just be something we'll have to be open to talking about.
And I like that, coming back together on a basis to reevaluate, to talk about doing more in
I
which
mean, this
area.
is something that's going to be an experiment for you guys, and it may work for you, it may not work for you. I don't want you to think that I'm so, if 6 months down the road you decided that you needed something different, you needed more, or you needed somebody that was there, you know, 5 days a week, and this arrangement wasn't working, then that's fine. I mean, I want what's best for you guys. And so if what's best for you, and we're not going to be able to figure that out until we figure out exactly what you need, whether what I can provide is what you need, right? I don't see a downside to trying this, because all that's going to do is define for you better what it is you're looking for. And if I can provide that, that's great. And if I can't provide that, then we can have an open discussion about it and figure out what is best for you.
And I would think too, Michelle, that you would be open to us to also come forward and say, you know what, I think you guys need a whole lot more of an in-house presence, should that be the case.
Oh yeah, if I'm looking at this and I think that's what you need, I will tell you that. Okay, and we'll just have to be open in our communications on what you guys want, what you see, and what I think you need, or I see is going on. Right? And the other thing we could do is we could start small with this also. We could start with, well, I'm trying to think. I mean, we could start with the stuff that Debbie didn't like to do a lot of, right? More of the legal aspect of it, and really maybe start with training and disciplines and terminations, and then just gradually expand it as we see the need for that. So this is all up to you about where, you know, how fast you want to jump, you know, 2 feet into the pot. How fast do we want to implement things?
Any thoughts?
No, I think it sounds good, start small and kind of build from there.
Okay, well, if you guys want to talk about it, and then we could get back together, it's totally up to you about, you know, my thought would be if you want to start small, then what we start with is you know, we really figure out how often I need to be there. That you really want to make sure you have somebody overseeing discipline issues, right? I mean, that's kind of one of the most important things. And some basic training on medical issues. So medical, EEO issues and discipline issues, I think, are things that are clearly something that, you know, need some HR oversight. I don't know about your county, but in general, those tend to be the number 1 and 2 things that need some oversight to do the right way.
Yeah, I think we're probably usual in that case. I do think we need some of the trainings, specifically in the 3 that you mentioned, to start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Michelle, I don't know if this is the time to ask, but I'm gonna do it. What are we talking about finances?
Well, you know, normally I charge $100 an hour, but for something like this, I was thinking about that, and what I would do is charge you guys $60 an hour. Now, what you have to understand is that if I'm putting things together and learning how to do things, I'm very reasonable in how I here if you call me up and there's a 10-minute conversation and charge you $10 or whatever it is, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, this is how we're going to handle it, blah, blah, blah. It's not until there's chunks of things, all right?